Donald Trump announced yesterday that he was picking current FTC Commissioner Andrew Ferguson to lead the agency, which is obviously now helmed by Lina Khan, who we cover a lot on this show. Ferguson is kind of a known figure for people who follow these types of things. But let's go to the next element here. This is Trump appointing Andrew Ferguson.
This was being circulated by his allies. Ferguson. There's some question as to whether or not Ferguson himself was circulating this, but certainly his allies were circulating this. And if you're just watching it, if you're just listening to it and not watching it, Emily, this is kind of not great if you like Lina Khan.
Yeah, it's a big chunk of text, but it says, successfully fought to end the Biden FTC's anti-business policy of refusing to end merger investigations early and allow firms to close their deals as soon as the FTC finds no competitive harm. Represented Virginia and numerous other states in a landmark antitrust suit against Google's ad tech monopoly. So I just want to note those two things being literally together in the bullet points. This is the nuance of the right's opposition to Lina Khan. There are some people on the right, including J.D. Vance, who've been very positive about Lina Khan, others who have been sort of in the middle about Lina Khan, and then a third group that are just absolutely opposed to Lina Khan at every turn. Ferguson appears to be somebody in the middle. So like you can see they're bragging there about him being part of the antitrust monopoly suit against Google. I'm sorry, the ad tech monopoly suit against Google. Obviously, it's an antitrust one as well, but and then the next bullet point is about overreach, right? Antitrust overreach, and that's sort of interesting.
Yeah, that sheet talk, that memo talks a lot about being too tough on mergers. That Lina Khan's too rough on the business community. That they're going to do a lot of deregulation. It's ironic that, and almost poetic and anti-poetic, whatever, that Trump made this move, ousting Lina Khan and replacing her with Ferguson on the same day that one of her most significant victories came through. If you can put up this Fox Business article on the screen next, the Kroger Albertson merger was blocked as a $24 billion merger that Lina Khan had fought, and arguing not just that it would be bad for consumers. There's agreement across the spectrum, even among the kind of pro-business side, that if you can prove that there is going to be harm to consumers, then you can block a merger. That's called the consumer welfare standard. Now, the if you can prove it is the part that the pro-business side hangs their hat on and says, and just constantly argues, well, all of these mergers are going to be good for consumers. We're going to give you lower costs, and look, it's going to be wonderful. Trust us. And then it happens, and then it's not, and it's done. So you're screwed. In this case, she argued that actually, additionally, the FTC, and going back to its original meaning, when it was created, and so when some of these acts were created that enabled its powers, the power of workers and the well-being of workers matters too. And so she argued that this merger would depress wages, would make it, and would hurt worker power, which is also an interest of the federal government, of the people of the United States, which is kind of a radical take. Like, well, we're supposed to care about workers? What? Yeah, actually, it's in the law. You're supposed to. Here she is, I love this, talking to Hassan Piker on his stream about this.
This decision being blocked, what kind of labor protections does that offer to people that are working at these corporations?
So one thing that our lawsuit alleged was that if this merger goes through, it's going to mean higher grocery prices for shoppers, but it's also going to be worse for the workers. And this is the first time that the FTC has ever sought to block a merger, not just because it's going to be bad for consumers, but also because it's going to be bad for workers. And, especially in recent decades, antitrust enforcers had not really been focused on the worker harms as much, and that's something we've really looked to change. So the complaint lays out how previously, when there has been competition between Kroger and Albertsons, that the workers at each store were able to use that competition as leverage when they were trying to bargain. And that if you allow these two companies to merge, that leverage that comes from having a potential alternative employer or an alternative store where customers can go if there's a strike, but eliminating that leverage point and bargaining leverage would ultimately be bad for workers. So again, this is still being litigated, but that was in the complaint as an explanation for why this merger would be bad for workers. When the FTC team put on the trial, they actually had on the stand some of the workers that are currently employed by these stores so that they could also share their experience. And just generally, I mean, there's a lot of empirical evidence that now shows that after mergers, workers have seen, pay cuts or a limit in any pay rises. You often see layoffs. You can see workers have less negotiation power to figure out, will I even have a stable, predictable schedule? And so, these are all dimensions of competition on the labor front that are important to protect for people.
First of all, it's pretty cool to have an FTC chair that goes on Hassan Piker's stream. We were 4 years in power. It was quite a run. We'll see. We'll see where it goes from here. The big fear among supporters of the kind of Lina Khan approach to FTC was that Melissa Holyoke, who was a commissioner on the FTC, that she would get the chair gig, and she's as hostile as you can get to the kind of Khan-Cantor wing of that bipartisan, transpartisan movement. So the fact that she didn't get it is something, but the fact that somebody got it who says that that she was too tough on mergers, like the day that she blocked this huge, because what the Wall Street Journal would always say about her is, she filed another frivolous BS case that's just going to eat up money, and then when a judge gets this complaint, he's going to knock it away because this is a child who doesn't even belong in this job, and she doesn't understand how the law works. And time after time after time, the judges are like, these are good points. This merger's blocked.
Well, what she said on Hassan's show there is so it's one of the reasons conservatives don't like her is because, as Rachel Bovard has talked about to us and others, is the consumer welfare standard of Robert Bork was gospel on the right for a really long time. Not just the political right, but just sort of the pro-business community for a long time, the consumer welfare standard. And what Lina Khan was saying there is that it's not. And
when we're saying pro-biz, they mean pro-big business.
Yeah.
And also the mergers and acquisitions lawyers who make money on these mergers.
Absolutely. Pro-big business. And the consumer welfare standard is predicated on this idea that consumers will choose to shop at places where they treat workers well. And that is not the case when you have monopolies, right? Like, it's this ridiculous sort of cycle. And Ryan, I just looked this up, actually. We invited Andrew Ferguson to come on a Friday show with Matthew Stoller to talk about conservatives and antitrust policy back in June, and never got a response. So your point about Lina Khan going on the Hassan Piker stream is really interesting, because one of the reasons Khan irked a lot of people in the business community is that she's the new Brandeisian, right? Like, she's actually very much in the moment, and that was irritating because it was a threat. It's like, this is a popular movement behind Lina Khan. People seem to like what she's saying. There's a lot of media interest in her, and that poses a threat because it makes the right more interested in supporting Lina Khan. Matt Gaetz, very supportive of Lina Khan, for example.
Calls himself a conservative.
Yeah, conservative. So you can see why they would be threatened by Lina Khan, actually getting an invitation even to go talk to Hassan Piker. I don't know which way it went. Maybe they pitched her to Hassan, but either way, Andrew Ferguson is going to have a slightly tougher time on this one because Lina Khan obviously was popular in new media spaces like this one.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.